Welcome to Texas LLTD Microtraining with the YLC. I'm Garrett Tomaszek. I'm the current chair of the Young Leaders Council and incoming board of director for Best Buddies International. I'm currently a student at Texas A&M University and a part of the chapter. Tanya, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya Swanee. I'm a member of the Best Buddies International Young Leaders Council. I'm also a member of the Best Buddies chapter here at the University of Texas at Austin. Zach, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey y'all, my name's Zach. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. I'm a new member on the Young Leaders Council here with Best Buddies International. And like Tanya, I'm also a member of the University of Texas Best Buddies chapter here on our campus.
Awesome. And before we get really into our topics here, we just want to give you a quick rundown of what the YLC is in case we have anyone out there that's wanting to further their leadership in Best Buddies. So if you want to learn more about just the YLC in general, we really recommend going to check out our link tree. Within the link tree, you can find a bunch of different stuff in there from the operations of the YLC flyer. That'll go into detail of what's it like to be a member of the YLC? What are the initiatives that we take on? And then you also see a map like this one where we're all located geographically. You can also see a link for our YouTube channel. We have a ton of great resources and videos on there. We recommend signing up for the newsletter as well. You'll get a lot of great updates about what's going on in the council, as well as we'll give you updates on what's in our resource banks, both for chapter leaders and program managers. And you can access both of the resources for program managers and chapter leaders through the link tree. Program managers have to put a quick login, but then you can access all the resources that the YLC creates. If you don't want to go and click on the link tree, you can go and scan this QR code and it will take you straight to all of those amazing resources.
All right, guys. So the first thing we're going to chat about, so today's session is kind of guided towards COVID-19 and getting back to a semi-normal state, and just kind of talking about that transition and also getting numbers up and really just trying to get back to how Best Buddies used to be before this crazy pandemic. So the first thing we're going to chat about is obviously transitioning to in-person events, and these are just a few things for you to consider. Later, Zach is going to talk about just the different ways and different thought processes of transitioning back to these events. So I just wanted to highlight three main things here. The first thing I wanted to really emphasize is comfort levels. Be sure to have an open conversation in your chapter about your comfort levels in regards to COVID-19, as well as everyone else's comfort levels. A great way to do this is create a Zoom option for in-person events, regardless of your personal opinion on the situation around us. Be sure to always just kind of have a super impartial, scientific approach to everything, just so you're able to empathize with people on both sides. Additionally, be sure to just be empathetic to everyone. Another way you can kind of tell different comfort levels is an idea I had was maybe giving people punch or something, and then in those that you can have different colored cups based on your comfort levels with COVID. So if you're vaccinated and you're fully you are okay with being around people who aren't wearing their masks, you can have one color cup. If you're wearing your mask, you want other people to also wear their masks around you, you can have another colored cup, kind of just setting up those distinctions so people know how to approach you in regards to health and safety. A great way to grab ideas from your members is to create an anonymous Google form. Make sure that it's anonymous just so there's no bias or anything related to that. And then obviously just always have an open conversation with chapter leaders and representatives. If you're a chapter leader, maybe consider having office hours once a week, and you can just kind of have an open discussion with your members, or if a concern arises, they can just chat with you honestly about that. So the next topic is prioritizing safety. Obviously, we want health and safety to be the top priority, and this just kind of emphasizes that. Work to mitigate COVID-19 cases if they do arise, and encourage measures to prevent the spread, especially with vulnerable populations. So an important way to do this my example over here is just kind of having a backup plan or like a automatic like switch to Zoom option. I know here at UT, we've had to do this quite a bit for this business fraternity that I'm pledging and I'm a part of. We had to switch to a virtual option for a meeting just because there were a few cases and we wanted to be safe. Also encourage testing and make sure that you have resources for free and like nearby local testing, just so everyone is able to be safe. Consider having an officer of responsibility dedicated to health and safety. So this could be under the secretary, for example, and one thing they could do is just kind of be there to talk about any COVID-19 concerns, anything in regards to just kind of, you know, mitigating the risk, kind of analyzing how everything's going, all of that stuff. Basically, we just want everyone to be able to have as much fun in person as they can, but we want you guys to prioritize that safety aspect, obviously. The next thing, it's really important to create a community around this. Everyone is here transitioning back in person. Everyone's going through the same struggles you are. Everyone in your high school, junior high, elementary school, whatever, we're all going through it together. So it's really important to work with your school and with local authorities, depending on where you live, regarding the best plan for your chapter. If masks are required at your school, maybe it's a good idea to have those required at chapter events. If masks aren't required, but you feel a need, be sure to have like an honest conversation with your chapter members and leaders about that, to kind of talk about your concerns, maybe at an introductory meeting or your next meeting if you haven't had the chance to do that. And then work on adapting these rules as the year progresses. We know last year it was so crazy with a huge surge in December. And if that, God forbid, happens this year, we want to make sure that we are ready to adapt to that. If you guys would like to do this, this was another idea I had, maybe consider getting a speaker, like a medical professional or even your school nurse, to kind of emphasize the importance of COVID-19 protocols and just making sure everyone's as safe as possible. Obviously, we just want to make sure that we're keeping everyone vulnerable safe, and we want to keep everyone healthy. Also, work closely with the parents. Creating a relationship at the parent meeting, for example, is a good idea to do this. Parents are obviously incremental to the whole Best Buddies ecosystem, and we really want to make sure that we understand them and understand their kind of safety measures and comfort levels as well. So make sure to, if you would like to, create an anonymous form for the parents as well, and just always have your contact information for them to reach out to you, and just really create that open door with them as well. Thank you guys. Zach, do you want to share?
I would love to. So kind of piggybacking off of what Tanya was saying about navigating in-person events, the other side of that, while we're going through this pandemic, is hybrid events. So a lot of things, there's going to be a lot of similarities. The one thing that I want to highlight, the differences between having a hybrid event versus a fully in-person event, is essentially you're hosting two events at the same time with the same mission. So I've kind of listed the 5 different pillars that I like to have to kind of help me guide myself through the process of planning events, especially if you are going to have a hybrid option. So first and foremost, I want to talk about the planning stage, definitely the most important. Something that really helped me when I was at the chapter level hosting these events, especially during COVID, was making a master list of everything that you have to get done and giving yourself a timeline to complete these things. Going off of that, delegating to your officer corps is extremely important, especially since you're hosting essentially 2 events. Utilizing your vice president and your secretary and your treasurer, and not only your officer corps, but your chapter advisors. These are adults in your chapter that can definitely give you guidance on a education and more of an administrative level to find out what can and cannot be done. Each school is going to be different. Each district is going to have different guidelines, and each person is going to have different comfort levels, like Tanya mentioned, about COVID-19 and mitigating that risk. Reaching out to your classrooms of special education students, if you're a college chapter, reaching out to your host sites to find out what they're most comfortable with. That's going to add another layer of protocol that you're going to have to follow in order to find out, to see like what is the best way to execute this to have the safest event. Because it is going to be hybrid, meaning you are going to have an online option. How are you going to have an online option that is just as equitable for people in person? What kind of activities are you going to have during these events to engage and spark interest in your club? These hybrid events aren't just geared towards our individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. They're geared towards all members. So you want to make sure it's equitable for every single person. Moving on to the next level of the pillar, spreading the word. You I'm sure as myself and everybody else have realized that social media is the name of the game. You have to be active on your platforms. You have to be able to create promotional material to be able to advertise your events. You definitely need to connect with your greater community and the people who may not be in the classroom every day. Studies have shown that, tried and true methods like hanging up flyers and word of mouth is not necessarily going to have the same effect as it had maybe 2 years ago. So finding ways to engage your members through social media and other platforms, not just word for word. Another thing that I want to mention, especially as we are still trying to transition back to more of an in-person environment, is partnering with other organizations on campus, talking about athletic teams or maybe the band, other powerhouse organizations that already have a huge following, and kind of utilizing their numbers and their platform to kind of open the door of Best Buddies to other members. That's what the whole program is about, is spreading the word and spreading our mission of inclusion. And no better way about going about doing that is by partnering with these other organizations. And more so through hybrid is giving other people more options to be able to be at these events. Some people, if they have scheduling conflicts or they're not able to be in person, I know for myself, I could be doing something else, but I can hop on a Zoom call. I can hop on an event that's happening virtually, and I can still be engaged while not necessarily being present in that location. I think that's super important to kind of take note and to kind of keep in mind when having these things. So moving on to executing. On the day of the event, what is your team going to do to make sure it happens? There's a lot of different things, and this is where your master list of everything that you need to get done is going to come in handy. Creating check marks of things that you can cross off your list, delegating different tasks to different members. There needs to be someone who is solely in charge of a hybrid option, somebody who can mitigate technical issues, somebody who can be in charge of monitoring the chat, keeping these members online engaged, and kind of helping flow of the overall event, both in person and online. Moving on, like kind of with in-person stuff, like what supplies do you need if you're having a party? Do you need to get food? Do you need to secure donations for other things, such as maybe like an activity if you're going to have an art project or whatsoever? But supplies also virtually. Like I mentioned earlier, how are we going to keep our members online engaged during these events? Creating some sort of online platform. The internet has exploded with tons and tons of interactive virtual content that can not only be used online, but can also be implemented for an in-person option as well. Kind of flipping the narrative and taking something that was meant for online, but making it into something that can also be utilized in person. I found in my experience that utilizing something already created for an online audience is much easier to kind of morph into an in-person opportunity, has been much easier than trying to take an in-person event and trying to make it virtual. There's not as much control, and it's much harder to create something that's online versus something that's in person. But keeping in mind that this is a hybrid event, you're having an online option just as much as you're having it in person. So locations, where are you going to be hosting this event? Do you have a stable internet connection? Do you have power? If you're going to be in a park, make sure you've kind of thought this through. Like, how are you going to fuel your online connectivity? And how are you going to go about doing that? What things do you need to do? Who's going to be bringing the laptop? Who's going to be signing on to Zoom? Things like that. And just keep in mind that technical issues do arise. No event is going to be perfect, especially as we're trying to navigate through these treacherous times. So make sure you're not too hard on yourself or your officer corps and learn from your mistakes. But moving on kind of to measuring, like what quantifiable data can you measure in order to decide if an event was successful or not? Are you going to be measuring that in the numbers of people that show up, whether it's virtual or in person? Is this going to be monitoring the chatter that you hear after the events, kind of hearing what people have to say about Best Buddies? Maybe if it's their first time, what did they think about the program? How do you think the event went? That's another way to measure as well. And then just kind of talking with your advisors and seeing like what could have done differently, which kind of moves into my next and final point of reflecting. What went well? What didn't go well? Were there technology issues? COVID-19 concerns? It's on my mind every day, as I'm sure it is all of you in a leadership position, is how can we keep people safe? What are the issues that are arising through these events through taking in consideration of COVID? So All of these things I hope can help you kind of take away and help navigate through these hybrid events. Just remember that they need to be just as engaging as in person. And I understand that can kind of be a little bit more difficult, especially since you can't be as hands-on in a virtual environment. But like I said, if there's one point to take away, especially within planning events, definitely look at the options for virtual engagement and trying to morph them into an in-person setting. I found so much more success when trying to do it the opposite way versus taking an in-person event and trying to make it virtual. But I wish you all the best of luck. Like Garrett said earlier, all of these resources can be found in our link tree. Please reach out to us on the YLC. We're always looking to help connect with other leaders, and be sure to send us pictures of your events. We're always looking to showcase and kind of advertise the great things that our local Best Buddies chapters are doing. And being from the state of Texas, I'm always happy to showcase what's happening in the Lone Star State. But I'm going to pass it on to Garrett where he's going to talk about growing your numbers for this year.
Well, thank y'all, Tanya and Zach. So rebuilding your numbers post-COVID, it's going to be very difficult. It's already pretty difficult to increase your numbers in a normal year without a pandemic or without having to transition back. So we're going to go through like 5 quick topics here. First, you want to look at make sure you're doing any events that are going on back to school recruitment wise. Maximize established mass communication forums. If there's already forms of communication within the school, utilize those. You don't always have to create the new ones. Establish connections by networking. Utilize high traffic areas of the school and increase the quality and quantity of social media posts. So building back numbers, back to school recruitment, attending all grade level orientations, handing out flyers, QR codes are very helpful. It's very quick, easy for somebody just to scan it, and they have all the information of your chapter events or whatever you want to put on there. Tabling during lunches. This is pretty key. Make sure you're being active. It's very easy just to sit there at the table and just watch people go by and wait for them to come up. I promise you, as somebody that's also been on both sides of those, the person that's just walking by, they're probably not really paying attention, or they're just trying to get to the destination. So reach out there, start that conversation, try to pull them in and tell them about Best Buddies. Ask to give a quick elevator speech during homeroom or at the beginning or end of class. Use sticky notes with QR code information to be spread throughout the school. Mass communication forums. Does your school have morning announcements? If they do, use those. If you have a school newspaper, a local newspaper, see if you can do get an ad in there. Make sure you're using your the organization as well as the school's 501c3. That could be a tax write-off for the local newspaper. Not so much for the school newspaper. They may charge you, but it's definitely won't be as much as like a local newspaper. Posting flyers at the school. Again, all through this presentation, I put QR codes because I think QR codes are so easy and very easy just to hand off a bunch of information with a quick scan. Putting notes on teachers' whiteboards, of course, with permission, but just writing, hey, we have a Best Buddies event this Thursday, or in what room, what time. It's not going to see, not every person in the school is going to see it, but at least 7 periods or however many periods you have in your school, or that many students are going to see that note. And if everyone in the chapter, all the officers were to do that, that can increase numbers pretty quick. School or district social media accounts. My school and district was pretty big, so we had some pretty large social media accounts. See what you can do there. Networking wise, Zach had mentioned this earlier, but ask to see if you can have members or your officers speak at other organization meetings, and say that they can come speak at y'all's meetings as well. Ask the athletic or fine arts department for a buddy to give a quick speech about Best Buddies. Partner with another organization to host an event or a meeting. And then social media wise, if you haven't already created or established a social media account, you need to do it as soon as possible. Improve the quality of posts and the number of posts to increase interaction on your social media page. Great apps that we would suggest or sites is Canva, Canva Story, Mojo. Mojo does come with a fee, but I believe you can do like a quick trial run for free. And Linktree. Linktree is a great, useful resource. You can put a ton of different links on there, all within one link. Utilizing high traffic areas. Focus in high student traffic areas throughout the school. So that could be main hallways, cafeteria, library, career centers, or the front desk. And also focus possibly on like arrival or dismissal times of handing out flyers. Possibly even with treats. I know my chapter did that one year, and I know another org at our school handed out donut holes in the morning. Donut holes are pretty cheap, even you can get a ton of them, and who doesn't love a donut walking to school that morning? Wasn't really expecting that. And I'm sure you'll be the talk of the school right there. Handing out lollipops with like a sticky note, or like having like a note on it that says something about Best Buddies, or join Best Buddies, or just handing out candy in general. Everything that we have said, again, these are just tips that you can take back to your chapter, discuss with your officer corps or your advisors, and further develop these ideas, or come up, hopefully this can at least spark some ideas for future, and hopefully can improve your numbers at the school. But we just want to wrap up here and thank you all so much for giving us this opportunity. We love Texas. We're all from Texas, and we were all in y'all's shoes at one point or another. If you have any other further questions, please reach out to any one of us, Zach, Tanya, or I. It is our first name and last name at bestbuddies.org. So it's pretty easy to contact us. But if you are wanting to find another method of answering questions, and those could be open-ended questions as well, I would highly recommend heading over to Chatter on BB360. This is a new feature on the new platform of BB360. This will allow you to go in and type in a question. You could ask just, hey, what does everyone do for fundraising? And then hopefully other people in other states or people within Texas as well can come on there and give their ideas. It's a great collaboration tool. It's almost like LC within one chat, if you will. But the YLC will also be participating in that and monitoring the chat, and we will also be posting resources in there. So be on the lookout with that. And thank you all again for giving us this opportunity. Bye.